Hello, welcome back to 1874. It's time for a show now for Jacob Tanswell from The Athletic and myself, Dan Bardell, to look back on Crystal Palace 3, Aston Villa 0. The FA Cup semi-final. Absolutely horrendously unsure how I'm going to speak about this. I've tried to avoid thinking about it too much today and keep my powder dry for this chat with Jacob. Now, sure, loads of people will be joining live, loads of people kind of looking to get things off their chest in the chat as well. So I'm hoping in some weird way that today might actually be cathartic, this show. We might all feel a little bit better. But by the end of it, I didn't envy Dan Rollinson doing Claret and Blue as soon as he got home last night. I don't think I would have been capable of doing a show straight after the game like those guys did. So credit to them. So yeah, hopefully, thank you for tuning in live, those that are live with us now. And thank you to everyone that will go on and listen and watch as well. Because in all honesty, it's probably not a show that anyone really wants to do, mine and Jacob's end, and that anyone really wants to listen to or watch, because I'm not sure that we're going to be able to do anything to make anyone feel better. But as AVFC Stato has just said in the YouTube chat, need this therapy. So let's just have a chat and see what happens. Jacob, your first time reporting as a reporter, obviously, because that's what reporters do at Wembley in a semi-final. Before we get into the game, how was that from a career perspective? Let's try and find a mini positive.
Yeah, I actually did the FA Cup semi-final during the lockdown season for Southampton v Leicester. That was as bad a performance as well. Southampton were safe that season. They had nothing else to play for, and they didn't even have a single shot, let alone one on target. So
what we're saying here is, Jacob, that the two times you covered a team in an FA Cup semi-final, it's not gone very well.
And yeah, it was a very timid, passive display. So it rings, some similarities. But from a career perspective, it was the first time that I was in a full capacity Wembley, because obviously that was during lockdown, and it was absolutely wonderful. Again, you sometimes have to pinch yourself, really. I was on holiday last week, and my girlfriend's got other things to do this weekend. Everyone's going back to work on a Monday, but yeah, my work is to go to Wembley and cover a game, which I'm so privileged to do. And even in the aftermath, as gloomy as yesterday was, it was still a really enjoyable day from a career perspective, which was deeply marred by the performance.
Yeah, I've seen this on Twitter today. I don't know whether something's happened that I'm not aware about. Me and you haven't spoken until we're literally doing this show now. If you ask him whether you're still covering Villa next season, I saw a few people on social media earlier. Is there any truth to the rumours that Saudi have come in for you, Jacob? I don't know what's going on there.
I'm going to Saudi. I've seen a few people actually ask me this. I don't know why. I don't know if it's like end of season and like contracts are up for grabs, but until I'm told something otherwise, maybe they know more than me. But right now, yeah, I'm living in the Midlands. I'm there, so yeah, I'm covering Villa until whenever they tell me not to. But I don't know.
Yeah, okay, good to know. And generally, other than yesterday, Villa have been quite good since you've covered the club. So we wouldn't want you to go. And obviously, everyone enjoys your content as well, as I always say on here and in social media. There's enough delay tactics from me now, Jacob. Let's get into the game. And I guess we may as well start with the selection. I've got to say, I was surprised when I saw the selection. I will say, obviously, I've gone on and done predictions before the game, and I did it on Villa on Tour before the game. I'm never ever going to predict Villa to lose. It's not something I'm ever going to do. When I saw the team, I thought, uh-oh. And even previous to that, on the way up to Wembley, or way down to Wembley, sorry, I suddenly started to think of all the times I've been to Wembley, and I thought we spoke about it the other day. I thought of 2015 when Villa got to the FA Cup semi-final, and I over-celebrated Villa beating Liverpool that day, and that ended up being our final, and I didn't want that to happen again. So I was trying to kind of keep on an even keel to before this game. My mind then went back to, because I was a kid a few times at Wembley, so I don't really remember how I was feeling, but I remember the playoffs, the Fulham year. I didn't feel massively confident, but I was remembering the Derby year when we went up, and just remembered going into Wembley thinking, well, we've beat these twice. So we've shown that we can beat them. When we didn't just beat them, we dismantled them twice. We beat them comfortably. So I felt quite good going into that one, and Villa were obviously on a really good run at the time. We obviously lost on Tuesday to Manchester City. You don't know what that's done. And then I suddenly started to think, well, actually, we haven't beaten Crystal Palace this season, and we've played them 3 times. So suddenly I didn't feel confident anymore, because Oliver Glasner had shown already that he's got Villa's number 3 times this season. You can discount the Carabao Cup game because Villa played a pretty second, third string side in that one. But suddenly, as the day was going on, I was becoming less and less confident. The team selection amplified that. And we'll talk about that now, but also we'll come on to this. The way the atmosphere was before the game in Wembley, I started to think something not quite right here. I don't know whether anyone else felt these things, but I definitely did. And I said that to my now wife at the time as well. First, the team selection, Jacob. You as worried as me when you saw it?
Not particularly. There were 2 areas that I thought maybe he would have changed, but I can see the reason. So obviously the one we'll come on to is I thought Tyrone Mings would play instead of Pau Torres. But that's purely because Pau Torres has shown, previously this season but last year that he struggles with Mateta. So I thought, okay, Mings would be in there. Second one was I thought Jacob Ramsey would play. But then as kickoff grew closer, I kind of reasoned to myself. I thought, right, I tried to get my mind in how Emery would think. I think, right, Villa have been frustrated with Palace's compact shape, how they are very passive. I can understand why Asensio plays, because they want him in their number 10. He's probably got the best final ball when he's on it in that attacking midfield role, and he's the one that can pick a lock. So I can understand Asensio playing. He's played in big stages before. He's that type of player. But I can understand it, but even before the game, so I'm not just saying this to be wise in the aftermath. I thought Mings should have played, and then I thought Morgan Rogers, as your one of your best players, who basically plays every single minute until the game's done, should play in the number 10 role. And I thought Matty Cash is not going to get forward like he always does, because Emery's going to be cautious today. So if Cash is going to stay back like he did in the first half against Southampton, actually, almost as a third centre back, you need Rodgers to basically play as a right winger because you've got no other width, like in the Leon Bailey role, and he's not that. So I just thought it's going to look a little bit stodgy. Maybe Villa are going to get a goal before half time and that would open play up a little bit, but it's going to look a bit stodgy. So I wasn't surprised by the first 15-20 minutes, and I thought maybe a lot of that had to do with the cautious nature of the team selection.
Yeah, a lot of people in the chat referencing Tyrone Mings not playing. Conor Moran, and I mean, this is his opinion, it's different to mine, but his opinion is, I get Mings has been a great servant for Villa, but you would swear he is Maldini the way people go on. He wouldn't get into an England squad. He's a good player, but nothing special. I don't think anyone's heralding Tyrone Mings as the second coming of Paolo Maldini or any other defender that you want to mention. But for me, in recent months, probably since he came back from his injury, and Pau Torres has been available for his injury since his injury as well, Villa generally have done better when Tyrone Mings is on the pitch. Villa generally don't lose football matches when Tyrone Mings is on the pitch. In the lead up to the game, he obviously did the club podcast, not something I regularly listen to, but because it was him, I thought I'd listen to it because I always enjoy listening to Mings speak. When he was doing that, and I know you shouldn't read too much into things like podcast, but I did think he's 100% started. I spoke to Neil Cutler. Neil Cutler seemed to think that Mings would probably start in his opinion as a coach as well. The fact of the opposition that we're playing as well, Crystal Palace, I just thought he's a lock to play. And Greg always talks about Tyrone Mings and says he thinks, in his opinion, Tyrone Mings is Villa's most important player, and he was going to be the key man for Villa in the back end of the season. It's easy to do all this with hindsight, but I would have said it before a ball had even been kicked. I cannot understand why Tyrone Mings hasn't played this game, because it feels like a game that was completely built for him. And now the tale of the tape is, if you watch that 90 minutes back, I think we can all agree Mings would have been better suited than Pau Torres.
Yeah, I think Pau and Asensio are quite similar in terms of they should be picked on games that suit them. And I don't think this game suited Pau. I can understand the reason for Asensio, but I don't think this game suited Pau, and especially when you have a player like Tyrone Mings. So it's important to be balanced. I think most people would have preferred Mings in there, but he's not, as that comment rightly said, he's not the be all end all. But what he does give you is, I think he'd even admit that Pau Torres is more accomplished in possession. But this was not a game for that type of player. I think this is a game where it's a Wembley FA Cup semi-final. A lot of players have not played at Wembley before. It's going to be a big occasion. Atmosphere. It's going to be very excitable. You need a calm head and you need a leader. So having a player like Mings, who he might not play that well, but what he'll do is he'll win your headers. He'll be quite safe on the ball. He'll organise, and he'll be a presence on that pitch. So, for example, like a guy like Morgan Rogers, who everyone's talking about him before, the build up pre-game on the BBC was about Morgan Rogers. When he looks out onto that pitch, when the team's lining up, and he sees Tyrone Mings next to him, I think he feels assured, and he feels a guy that's done it. He's been there. He started that first game of Euro 2020 against Croatia. He's a very experienced player, and I think those intangibles are why he should have played. But just going back to your point previously, Dan, about how the day felt. When I got there 3.5 hours early, and it wasn't just me that thought that. A lot of other journalists thought there were so many Villa fans compared to Palace. Palace fans arrived later, but when I got into the stadium and got into my seat, I know I was closest to Palace, so I was quite cautious. I did feel like they looked like they were far more optimistic, far more excitable, and I don't know what. There was just something different. I don't know if you felt that on the day, Dan.
I was quite close to the Crystal Palace fans where I was sat, and the noise coming from there. I didn't know whether it was because I was close to them that it felt noisier from them. But my dad didn't go to the game in the end. I went to see my dad this afternoon. He said all you could hear on the telly was Crystal Palace fans, and I tried to explain to him what the atmosphere was like. It was just quite eerie. In the Villa end, it was almost like everyone was so built up and everyone was so nervous, whereas the Palace fans went there and just thought, we're going to have a good time. Whereas I had a great time in the lead up to the game in Box Park. It was absolutely great. But when I got to the ground, it just didn't feel right. I think people were genuinely a bit concerned about the team. Like, I think a lot of Villa, I think if you ask 95% of Villa fans, I think Tyrone Mings is in their 11 for that game. I think you're right. And again, it's easy to do this after a game where we've not turned up. But Asensio and Powell, for certain games, yes. I actually think Asensio is better coming off the bench. I genuinely think that, and he would have been a useful option off the bench potentially yesterday in a tight game. But my other gripe would be with the selection. I think the three off the striker, it is what it is. You know, you can almost go with any combination. It's going to be a high quality combination. It may work, it may not. The defence against Crystal Palace, who play in such a unique way with such a unique system, where at times you can end up being bombarded by very athletic players.
Yeah,
you'd look at the back four, and would you not think, let's play our most mobile and athletic front back four, and that's Cash, Konsa, Mings, and Maatsen. Oh, that's the way I would. I'm not a football manager. I don't know anywhere near as much about football as Unai Emery does. But that's what I thought before the game. Why would you not match them up, but pick your most mobile back line? And Villa's team in general, it didn't feel like the most pacey, energetic team that we could have picked.
No, and I can understand maybe a little bit more the way he played Power, if Power was at his best, at his fittest.
Yeah, he's not there, is he?
This is a defender that he's not been as good on the ball. His inbox marking has always been a bit of a blind spot, but it's got worse in the last couple of weeks with certain goals. So I thought, this is a Pau Torres who, I know this is Emery's favourite player, but he's not at his best and he's rusty. And you ultimately saw that in the lead up for Eze's goal. But I can understand Luca Dean, because I think apart from the last couple of weeks,
he did nothing wrong. I'm not. No. Luca Dean was good. He wasn't the problem. I'm just thinking generally, like, if you're trying to spring forward, you're better off with a Maatsen than you are with Luca Dean.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's not so much the personnel, especially the fullbacks, it's how they were used. Okay, because Cash was basically, Emery was just telling him to stay as a third centre back for most of that first half, and he just kept passing to Rodgers, and Rodgers received the ball like a right winger. He's not a right winger. He comes inside, he drifts into the pocket, so you need width outside of him. But Emery was so cautious and so maybe scarred from the last couple of games that he thought, right, Cash just got to hold basically Konsa's hand to stop the transition, stop us being broken on. But as it happened, that kind of materialised for Mitchell's missed kick in the first half, and also as his penalty as well. Cash was caught upfield after Villa lost the ball. So I think it's how Villa setup was used. I would like to have seen, how many times do we see Boubacar Kamara drop into that right centre back position and Cash then goes higher up the pitch, and it allows Rodgers to tuck inside. I thought the way the team looked was very conservative, a lack of rotation, and Luca Dean got into some positions. But I don't know if the personnel, obviously, Maatsen's naturally more inclined to make those runs. I don't think that was the bigger issue. I think it was just how they approached the game and where the players were positioned, which was the bigger issue. And maybe that led to some really poor showings. But I think ultimately the players have got to take responsibility as well. They kind of
of course
as well.
Yeah, I think it's a collective, isn't it? The manager's got things wrong. I think that the players have not performed on the big stage as well. And ultimately, they'll probably feel like they've let the supporters down. And I think a lot of supporters will feel let down by that FA Cup semi-final. We'll come on to what Conor Mulrennan said here. He said people talking about Power Mings. We're trying to just kind of go through the day as best we can. He said the midfield was a big issue with Kamara
Yeah.
having their worst performances all season. That definitely happened. That's 100% right. But you just brought up Morgan Rogers, Jacob. For me now, we're not getting what we can get out. I know he still popped up with goals and assists, but we're not getting the best of Morgan Rogers on that right hand side. What I can't understand is at some point during the game or in the first half, swap him and McGinn over. McGinn was actually good, I thought. McGinn, his time on the pitch, didn't let anyone down, did his best to try and make stuff happen, and was when Villa did construct some constructive moves, I thought John McGinn was involved in that. But Rogers is so much more effective on the left, and I think with McGinn, you're probably going to get the same on the left from him as you get on the right from him. So why not play Rogers in his kind of more natural position?
This comes from the mindset. So Emery said at Selhurst Park after the game when Villa got battered that Villa's plan was to stop Palace, not to impose themselves, and that was telling. And they did the same here. So, for example, I would, like you, agree Morgan Rogers better come off the left. But if you look at Palace's wing backs, Mitchell is more of a traditional fullback. He hasn't got anywhere near the attacking threat of Daniel Munoz.
He didn't look it yesterday, though, did he?
I know. Ordinarily, Munoz is the way Palace play. He's the more conservative Mitchell, and Munoz is the one that goes forward.
Yeah.
So in every mind, he was thinking, right, out of possession, McGinn's probably more defensively reliable than Rogers. So he'll track Munoz, and Rogers can stay with Mitchell, who's probably less threatening. So that was kind of like an indicative of the mindset that Villa were just aware of just what the other team would be like, the reactive rather than proactive. And that was my biggest takeaway from that game, that Villa, I've got 12 more points than Palace. They're 5 places higher. But yet Villa was so just wary of what Palace's strengths were that they just kind of forgot what theirs was.
Yeah, the two big selection things for me, there would have been 3 probably, because we don't know what would have happened with Rashford and Watkins, unless you've got any insight into that, Jacob, that whether Watkins was always going to play or whether it would have been Rashford had he been fit. But it was obviously probably this happened late. The hamstring injury. When did the hamstring injury happen?
Early in the week in training.
Okay,
it was,
and they kept it quiet.
Friday. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and I don't get hung up on the team selection too much, because we're 17 minutes in and we haven't even got into the game really. At this point, we're kind of talking about the team selection, and then we are kind of, I suppose, delving into the game a little bit when we're doing that. The two big ones for me, I thought Ramsey would play, and I thought Mings would play, and obviously that didn't happen. So in the game, we never really got going, did we? It always felt for me that Palace were going to be the ones that would score the first goal. But when that first goal did come, I felt there was a real lack of intensity from Villa, a real lack of streetwiseness to everyone's just watching. Villa have got problems at the moment with either, just seems to be the ball coming across. They seem to have real problems with that, whether that's a cross in an attacking sense, but it happened again yesterday. Admittedly, it wasn't a cross, it fell to Ezra at the edge of the box, and it's a really smart finish from him, and he's obviously a fantastic footballer, and Palace have got a really dangerous front three that would obviously cause Villa problems, and has done all season when we've played against them. But it was that lack of urgency and lack of intensity that really disappointed me for that first goal. Everyone kind of leaving it to each other, and no one really looking to put themselves on the line. And again, I've got to keep harping on about it. That's where Tyrone Mings doesn't do those things, and I feel when he plays it rubs off on other people as well. But that first goal just felt very, very passive, and inevitably it was Pau that gave the ball away into the build-up. I will say I've not brought myself to watch anything back yet, so I've not seen the goals, I've not seen the highlights, I've not seen anything. I can't even be asked to watch any football today, such as how I feel about the semi-final yesterday. So I haven't even watched the other semi-final or any Premier League today. I've just not got it in me, in all honesty. But did you feel the same for that first goal? Just a real lack of urgency from Villa, and just a lack of smartness.
It was just soft, so soft, these players. So I rightly, and probably frustratingly for some watching, just talk about a lot of the time about systems and stuff. But it was just soft and it was naive. It started with Konsa, luckily winning that foul. Taking a huge risk by taking that foul.
That looked soft. That did. I haven't seen it.
It was soft. I think Villa got away with that there, and that set a tone. Got 30 seconds later or whatever it was, Luka Dean has the ball under little pressure. As Villa know by this stage that Palace don't really press the fullback. They're just kind of biding their time, aren't they? And Luka Dean decides to pass backwards, indicative of the mindset. That is a trigger for Palace then to press Mateta and the two attackers behind him, then step up the pitch. Powell, rusty, slow, lethargic, probably actually quite surprised that Palace actually pressing him, just kicks it, it rebounds off the Palace player, and then the ball's turned over in a really dangerous position, edge of the box. Centre backs are too deep, don't get put pressure on the ball, and it's a really good finish. But it just, every single thing was just passive, just quite submissive, and it was, a pretty pathetic goal to concede, albeit a really good finish too.
And it was nearly two, quite quickly as well, from memory as well. Palace again worked the ball. I think we gave the ball away again. Palace then, as soon as we lose the ball, they are whoosh. They are gone, aren't they? Crystal Palace. They're on the attack in numbers.
Dan, they play the same every game you watch of Palace. They don't change that much. They play the same system. They transition the same way. They have the same way of playing, through Wharton feeding the ball centrally, then the two wing backs going high. They play the same every time. So it's not like Villa have to work them out. They play the same every week. So really, Villa, in some ways, the analysis should have been quite straightforward.
Mitchell probably should have. Again, I've not seen it back, but felt to me at the time, he probably should have scored.
He should score.
It's just they just come at you. But you like you say, it shouldn't be a surprise to Villa. They've played this team 3 times this season. They will have watched the analysis. The players will have watched analysis of Crystal Palace. But for whatever reason, in that first half, I just felt we actually can't cope with what they're doing here. When they go, we don't know what to do. Which, for a team that tactically is usually very good, and a team in Villa that is a tactically smart team, we are a smart team. We have to play with different nuances every week. They watch a lot of footage. They take on board Emery's instructions, and for 2.5 years, they've done that really, really, really well. What I was watching out there at Wembley in the first half, I was just like, we actually can't live with them, and we actually don't know what to do here. We had flickers where we looked like we might make something happen. I remember Watkins going wide to the left and fizzing the ball across the goal. Rodgers had a run and got fouled and drew a yellow card. And like I said, I think McGinn had some decent moments in that first half. But generally, we just looked out of our depth, and that's fine. Palace can be a good team on their day. But you're playing against a team that's 11th, 12th in the Premier League. Like, surely you've got to be able to work this out.
Yes, and that there's 2 instances in the first half, right? So that Mitchell miss kick where, after all the worry about Cash being caught upfield, he was caught upfield. And then the second one was where I think Kamara lost the ball to Mateta in Palace's half. And Mateta somehow just runs the whole length of half the length of the pitch and wins the corner or gets to the byline. And it just felt like someone surely can keep up with Mateta. Someone could just put a tackle in. And at that point, I just thought maybe that's where you need John McGinn at number 10 position rather than being shunted out onto the left. Just someone that could go through a player. He might get a yellow card or he might get a telling off. But you just needed someone to be more aggressive. If Kamara and Tielemans aren't doing it, you need someone else there just to do it. And I think that instance showed that if Mateta is outrunning you, Palace are more athletic, more physical, and really, I know it's quite cliche to say, I don't want to sound like Ali McCoy, but it looked like Palace just wanted it more. I think that was the problem.
And I honestly think, when I'm about to dig the Villa fans out to an extent here, I'm digging myself out as well. I'm part of it. I'm in the stands as well. But it felt like, as a fan base, as the players, the coaches, basically everything with Crystal Palace felt more geared towards winning that game. And just, I hate that phrase as well, but it did feel like generally as a club, the Crystal Palace were better suited and better made for the occasion and did want it more. And Villa went into themselves. You only have to look at the 2 midfielders, really, Tielemans and Kamara. Probably the worst I've seen either of them play. It takes a lot to fluster those 2 footballers, but they were flustered for 90 minutes or however long they were on the pitch on Saturday, Jacob.
Yeah, and I wrote in my piece that Wharton has the guise of a hand magician. You are kind of mistaken by his youthful face, and you think, he's a bit of a quiet boy, but he absolutely bullied Villa's midfield. And Kamara and Tielemans, maybe among the best double pivots in the Premier League. They look. One gave away a penalty, one was at fault for a goal. They look ragged and dishevelled, and gave me a recollection of earlier in the season when Villa would be cautious to start a game, they go a goal down, and then in the second half they become, instead of being better, they just look increasingly ragged and actually get worse. And if Emery looks at Tielemans and Kamara as the guys that will keep possession, that really stabilises the team and builds in the shape. But if those two are both not at it, then it's going to cause serious problems throughout the team, and probably has a knock-on effect to the teammates as well. Seeing these two guys are leaders in the team, so consistent, looking so ragged, really.
Yeah, I gotta say I didn't really massively notice Wharton, but it's probably a good thing for
Second
him.
half, oh my word, yeah.
I actually thought Kamada did a good job in there for Crystal Palace.
That's what I thought before the game. I said to the
He
Palace,
disrupted us a lot.
yeah, I said to the game before the Palace game, before the game to the Palace writer, I just said, right, your two midfields, they're good players, but they're too lightweight. You watch this midfield of Villa, and I think afterwards he reminded me of it. But Kamada's, he started the season as like a number 10, quite a floaty, player.
Yeah, I thought he was an attacking player.
And he's a bit deeper now, and he was, both of them workhorses and really good. And I think that also comes from how Glasner set them up in terms of, when Kamara or Tielemans received the ball, a bit like McGinn did at Selhurst Park when he was playing that pivot. Do you remember on the edge of the box a few times? He got away with a few things back then. When the ball goes to these midfielders and they've got their back to play, that's when Glasner tells them, the midfielders, to really pick the pockets, and they did that a few times. And for Sarr's third, and Palace's third goal, I think they're set up really well, and those two midfielders were fantastic, especially in that second half.
Yeah, I mean, I think Palace did set up well, but like you say, it's not really they've not gone against the wheel or against the grain of anything that they normally do. But those two won the midfield battle without a doubt. Like seriously hurt Villa's midfield. Seriously outplayed them. Anytime we did try and get going, Kamada would win the ball or put a big tackle in. Even just fouling, I didn't feel like Villa did enough of that. Like, you can cut things off at source. You can make fouls, tactical fouls here.
That's what I mean with McGinn.
Man City did it the other night against us.
Yeah. Sometimes, even in the PSG second leg, you see sometimes McGinn just go through a player.
We don't do it, except for him. He's probably the only one that does
Kamara
do it.
got booked in the first half for a foul, but I don't think it was more of a tactical foul. It's more of a desperate lunge. But yeah, I think we said earlier in the season, didn't we, Dan, that Villa can be too nice at times, and I think that was an example of that yesterday.
Yeah, and then second half, there was a decent start to the second half from Villa. I keep caveating this by saying I've seen nothing back, but the Luca Dean shot looked like a very good save from Dean Henderson. So Villa did have a couple of moments in the game, probably at 1-0 and 2-0, where they might have turned the tide a little bit, but it did feel, whereas what Palace were doing felt quite well constructed. Villa's felt very hit and hope, and I lost count of the amount of times we just put a cross into the box, which is just what Crystal Palace want you to do. They're playing with three centre-backs. They're probably one of the only teams that play in that way. You've got to be a bit more creative. Just lumping crosses in there. Lacroix, when Chris Richards, it felt in particular, felt like they won a lot of things that came into the box, and we didn't really ever feel like we were going to score that way. If you're going to score, it's got to be from something that's really well constructed and pulling people back and playing with a bit of purpose and a bit of penetration and pace. And Villa just didn't do that at any point. To get away with one with the penalty where I was sitting, I don't know whether you've seen it back to tell me whether it was a penalty or not. I've not seen much debate around it.
Yeah, I think it was a penalty. It's never going to be overturned on VAR. I think it's where Villa was sloppy again, weren't they? They started, like you say, the second half well. Luca Dean had a very good save from Henderson, in fairness to him. And they started well, but Villa weren't brilliant. They still overhit passes, loose passes, balls going out of play. And then, Cash passes it to Rodgers. Rodgers goes inside. Cash is already on his bike. Villa lose the ball. And they're just so open, and it's a tackle where it's the wrong side, so it always looks like it's a penalty, And, obviously, when you see Mateta step up, you think he'll score, and the fact that it will come onto it, but the fact that the missed penalty didn't give Villa a shot in the arm, then nothing really would.
Shouldn't it?
Yeah, the Villa fans tried to respond. I could hear them this time.
Yeah, that was the loudest we were actually.
I thought, here we go. Like Villa are going to use this bit of fortune now to their advantage, but it just seems to make Villa worse. Yeah, terrible.
Yeah, you feel like games hinge on moments, and you felt like if the tide was to turn, that could be the moment that turned it, but it didn't. And 5 minutes later, Villa conceded a goal. And in all honesty, I am sick of Ismaila Sarr. My God, this guy. Give us a break. What is it about him? He just turns into the best footballer in the world. I have no doubt when he drove forward with that ball, as soon as he let fly, I knew it was going in. I was kind of behind it, to the side, behind of it. I just knew it was going to go in because it's Ismaila Sarr. and he saves all his best days against Aston Villa Football Club. I spoke to a Palace fan on the way back. He was saying to me, "Oh, he's not actually been great in recent weeks, and he's very inconsistent. Every time I see the guy play, he's the best thing in the world. But the problem is, it's because I see him play against Villa in the main.
What was it? 4 goals now this season, just alone against Villa.
But he used to score against us for Watford.
Yeah.
I remember him murdering Matt Targett at Vicarage Road. I was at that game, and I think Targett maybe even got hooked at half time because Ismaila Sarr had just absolutely killed him in the first half. We just can't live with him. He just seems to thrive playing against Villa. Obviously, he scored again at the end as well. Again, as soon as he went through, but I thought, oh, well, this is a goal. I'm just sick of the sight of the guy. I'd buy him. Yeah, I'd buy him for 100 million and then never play him, just so I didn't have to see Villa play against him ever again.
Well, I think he's played a different position, didn't he? Played at Watford, right? He's a bit more central now, and it just seems like he basically has all he has the platform that Villa give to him, just to basically say, Ismaila, I know you, even if you're not playing very well in previous games, don't worry. We're going to do everything you want. We'll set the perfect condition for you to make sure you can get back to your best. The amount of space he had, the transition opportunities that Palace increasingly had, the space, the pace that are his strengths. Everything was perfect for him yesterday, and as it has been for every other game he's played this season. And maybe he's annoyed. Maybe he's annoyed that Villa didn't sign him, and he sees this as like a personal vendetta to spite them at every opportunity. I don't know.
I don't want to say I hate him, but I think I do hate him. I don't know him. I'm sure he's a perfectly nice fella, but I really don't like. I don't like. It's like a Villa fan murder members of his family or something in the past. There's something gone on here that he's just got a vendetta against Aston Villa Football Club. And honestly, I never want to see his name. Next time he plays against us, I'm putting money on him to score. I don't know why I've not been doing this all year or for the last couple of years. I don't like betting against Villa, so obviously it's not something I ever do. But there's got to be some joy to be had from Villa playing against him now. I've never seen a player have a hex over a football club like he does. Maybe except for Robbie Fowler against Villa when I was a kid.
I know a few that have got a hex over Southampton, but everyone's got one over Southampton this season.
Usually it's like Frank Lampard, for example, or Gerrard. They always used to score against Villa. This is, I'm no disrespect, it's not like a household name in the Premier League or football, is it? But yeah, every time we play against him, he has a worlder.
Yeah, you're right, and it just felt quite fitting that the goals that ultimately killed Villa off against Palace was Sarr, right? And God only knows, good job he wasn't there last year when Villa basically were on the beach in that final game of the season, because
forgot about that. I assumed he'd scored in my memory, to be honest.
No, it was Elise and Eze, weren't they? They were just running the show that day. Imagine if Sarr was there; it could be double figures.
I just that guy, something seriously wrong there. He needs to be stopped at all costs. If I see us play Crystal Palace again in the near future, it'll be too soon. I don't ever want to play them again. And I will say, I have absolutely nothing against Crystal Palace. They deserve to win. I thought their fans were brilliant.
Yeah,
I thought their team was brilliant. Executed the game plan. I think they got a really likable manager. They got some really exciting players, and they've recruited really well over the last probably 5 years with Dougie Friedman, who's now passed on, hasn't he? He's gone to Saudi. He said passed away. I didn't mean to say that. He's going to Saudi.
Yeah, I think
he's going
so.
somewhere, isn't he? Yeah. But I mean,
he hasn't died. He hasn't died.
No, he has. When he's killed Villa's hopes of winning a trophy, he has done that because his recruitment's been brilliant, and a lot of players have hurt Villa over the years that have come in under his watch. Like, I hope Crystal Palace win the final. I really do. I thought they were brilliant all round yesterday. So I'm giving them full credit. Like, I've got nothing against them at all. But overall, Jacob, we were hopeless.
Yeah, absolutely dour. It was a pretty pathetic performance, really, and it was just, you just wished it came in a home game against, I don't know, it was just a run-of-the-mill Premier League team rather than a big stage, a big occasion, a great opportunity for Villa to win a trophy, to do something that football is essentially all about when you boil it down. You forget PSR, forget extra revenue, these brilliant, everyone that likes to trumpet the extra revenue, this 50,000 seater stadium that still needs council approval. That's just basically another update on previous existing plans. Ultimately, Villa and football is for trophies, and Villa was so close, and they so probably deserved to win the trophy given the transformation in the last couple of years. And the fact that not only did Villa lose, but they were utterly hopeless, got everything wrong on the day. I think one thing went right, and it was just a drab game. You've probably been to Wembley before. I've been to Wembley before, where your team loses, but you can maybe be proud of the performance. You can think, you know what, the boys.
Honestly, we've had a couple of
I was just thinking
in all honesty.
But you could be like, you know what, it wasn't our day today, but we gave it a go. Villa didn't give it a go, and that was meek, wasn't it? It's like a boxer. Instead of being knocked out in the first round, you just survive for 12 rounds and you don't throw a punch, and you just come out of it thinking, we could have gone forever and we wouldn't have done anything. It was a terrible game, and I don't know if it hurt Emery. I know it's going to hurt Emery in terms of being tactically outdone again, but I don't think it hurt him as much as, for my experience in the press conference, as the Monaco game did, for example. Who's far more angry, far more annoyed at that one than
really. I mean, I thought this was worse. I thought this was. I'm trying to be reasonable, because I know that 95% of the time under Emery, this group of players have left me feeling very, very proud. Like, what they did yesterday doesn't really take away from how I feel about the manager, the coaches, the playing side of things, and all the players. Like, I still adore them and love them and thank them for everything that they've done for Aston Villa. But you can have those feelings whilst acknowledging that yesterday was just absolutely abhorrent. It was rank.
They would even admit it themselves, And
yeah, sure, I'm sure they would.
And a lot of these players have got, rightly so, credit in the bank, right? And I've written, everyone's talked about it, how great Emery is, how great the football department is, how great some of these players were. But you can call out when they got it massively wrong. And these players and these coaching staff in the club, I've spoken to a few, they all admit they got it wrong. So you can talk about Emery, but you can also talk about the spine of the team, right? Emery Martinez being well below standards recently, made some big errors, and for a player that Villa have to announce he's the world number one, he's not living up to that bill in any way. Ezri Konsa, Power obviously gets a lot of the blame, and Mings, because of the Mings, it's either him or Mings. But Konsa wasn't good enough, wasn't dominant enough, didn't lead the back line well enough. You talk about Kamara, but you talk about Watkins as well. Watkins came in after a really good performance against Newcastle, didn't build on it. So these players that have been very good players for Villa were poor, and they let the game pass them by, and that's probably the most disappointing aspect of the day.
Yeah, I do want to give Leon Bailey some credit, because I felt he was the only one really that kind of gave me any hope in that second half. He tried to make stuff happen. He was direct, and I think he did all he could in the time he was on the pitch. I have to give Leon Bailey some credit.
I give him a big credit as well. I think you can always. Everyone's been critical of Leon Bailey this season, but I do think he does give it a go, and he does work. He does try things, even when his confidence is not there. I think he's got the right intent. And yesterday, bearing in mind the previous two matchday squads, he hadn't been in there. Obviously angry and disappointed that he hasn't been playing and not featuring at a crucial time. But he came on ahead of Donyell Marlon, which surprised me.
I mean, I don't know what Marlon has to do to get on the pitch, in all honesty.
And he gave it a go, and he made things happen in a pretty dreadful display. So I think Leon Bailey emerged with credit. And I think for Villa's balance, I wouldn't mind him back in the team to some extent. If you're going to play Morgan Rogers out wide, you might as well play Leon Bailey there. Put Rogers in the middle. But yeah, Donyell Marlon. I just think Marlon's always in the squad ahead of Bailey, or has recently, and yet Bailey's coming on ahead of him early on. So yeah, Donyell's he's always coming on probably 10 minutes too late, isn't he, for what fans would like?
Yeah, I thought he'd be on earlier. I really did. He can't be happy, Donyell Marlon, but it's probably a show for another day, and a show that we've actually done before as well, Jacob, haven't we? So I think that probably wraps it up. Apologies, a load of people asked questions on X, but people asking in the live show and trying to cover it ourselves. We've probably covered all the things that were asked, but apologies, because if I ask for questions, I should utilise them. So I've learnt my lesson. I won't do that again. Just want to touch on Rashford quickly, Jacob. A few people speculating that he's not injured. I mean, of course he's injured, but that's probably him done for the season now. Bearing in mind he can't play against Manchester United on the last day.
I think it's pretty remote that he's going to play again this season. Hamstring injury for a player like him who's quite reliant on his pace. It's going to be very much a struggle. I think we got told, I got told before game that it was a knock, but I was very reluctant to report it because I thought with a hamstring, it's never a knock. It's always it could be fairly serious. So yeah, I think he'll be out for the rest of the season. We'll have to see how that develops with secondary scans and next week. But he seemed to enjoy himself at the boxing in the last 2 weeks. So he's got more time to do that now.
I've got no problem. I've got to admit, people will go over the top with that. I don't care after the game whether we've won or lost. Have a life. I've got no problem with a footballer going to watch a high-profile boxing match. I've got to say, I don't know. You obviously feel a little bit differently about it.
No, he went to the boxing the week before as well, didn't he?
I've got no issue.
Yeah,
people are trying to get at Watkins for doing it, but it's not.
Did Watkins go in the end? Did he?
Believe so. I'm sure I saw a picture. I could be remembering it's completely wrong. So apologies to Ollie Watkins or anyone else if I've got that wrong. Players do what they like.
Yeah. Whether a player went or not,
does it matter?
That's not the most important reason why Villa lost.
It's not going to change what's happened at Wembley whether a Villa player goes to a boxing match after the game.
No, of course not. But it's a shame for Rashford. Given he started to get some momentum, and it makes the decision on what he's going to do in the summer, a pretty complex one, right? Because he wants to join a Champions League club. Villa look distant to get that now.
Still a shot. I'm not ruling it out. I look at the table and think it can still be done.
Even still, let's say he did want to come, then could you justify the 40 million price tag and his wage? And it's not only just that. I know it was for another day. If let's say he does sign, every other player is going to try and negotiate a new contract to be near him as well. So it's going to, high tides lift all boats, right? So that's for another day. But a terrible day, terrible game, and I feel awfully for those fans that had travelled there with such high expectations and were disappointed and let down so badly.
Yeah, I agree. I met so many brilliant people in Box Park and walking into the ground as well. People who are so nice about the channel and work and whatnot. Just so many great people. So as always, sometimes with away games, this is the case as well. Like, you have a good day until the football starts, and that is definitely what happened yesterday.
Actually, saying that, the best 2 moments of the day were before when I got on the train, spoke to a few Villa fans. Afterwards, spoke to a few Villa fans. They were, that's the best part, and it's always great, especially away games when you bump into Villa fans. It's always really enjoyable to talk to everyone.
Yeah, Box Park was brilliant before the game. I had a great time in there. So let's go. Anyway, I'm sure there'll be some content through the week. Of course, I've no idea in what order, but I'm going to try and get some content daily now. So let me know in the comments if you would like to see that, and on social media. I'm going to try and make it daily. I think now. So we'll see what happens there. See if I can pull that off with other commitments going on. But let's see what happens. Thank you to Jacob for braving this evening and coming on with me. It's much appreciated. Thanks to those that have joined us in the chat. Hopefully it's been cathartic in some ways and helped you get out some anger or some sadness. I think it's helped me a little bit. I might even bring myself to look at the lowlights now after this. I might have a quick gander at them, and I may even watch Match of the Day and catch up with the other football later on. I just want to see what happened in the other games.
Okay. So you're not going to watch Villa again?
I'll watch the highlights, lowlights. I need to know. I need to see. I need to see again.
Is this the final? Is this the final stage of grief? Or
yeah, probably.
Yeah,
probably. I don't know. I feel a bit rubbish about it, but it is what it is, isn't it? That's life. Life goes on. And as I say, the players and the manager and the coaching staff, they've given us a lot of good days. So try not to be too hard on them. As disappointing and as frustrating as it is, they've given us memories that will last forever that we didn't think we'd ever see. So yeah, stay with them. Still something to play for this season as well. Win your 4 games, and there's a chance that you'll get top 5, and we'll have those Champions League nights again. So yeah, that's really, really important to the club. So don't lose faith in the lads just yet. However, I can say that whilst acknowledging that yesterday was absolute rubbish, and I would never want to see another game of football at Wembley like that ever again. I don't even want to go to Wembley again anymore. Let's just get knocked out of the cups at the earliest stage next season. I don't want to go through that. Do all the audio things that I bang on about everywhere. Can't even be asked to explain it at this point. I'll give Jacob one more thanks, and thanks to Match Bingo as well. Have a good rest of your weekend, even though I'm sure it's already been ruined, and up the Villa.